So welcome everybody, and thank you for coming to our seminar today. We enjoy doing these and appreciate everybody coming and having such a good crowd. Why is independent and assisted living so important? Well, in today's world, it's quite simple. We're living longer. When Social Security was established in 1935, you couldn't collect it till 65, but men weren't expected to live past the age of 60. Typical government program, right? Women were expected to live to age 64, and how many of us were alive in 1950? Well, all of us here, except some of our partners, were absolutely alive in 1950 and running around and doing what we did. Today, in 1950, life expectancy for men had increased to 66, women 72. Well, today, the cause of death back then was primarily heart disease and infectious disease. Today, we're expected to live to 76 if you're 50. If you're 70, you're supposed to live, men are supposed to live to 85. Many of us are going to certainly knock those numbers away. In the United States, there are more than 97,000 known people over the age of 100. I say known people because if you go back to 1922, a lot of people, and we run into this frequently. We were meeting with a couple last week. They were from Alabama, and they were both born in their grandparents' house, where they may or may not have had a birth certificate. I think back with my grandparents, I wonder if they had birth certificates. They were probably born in a house. So that's why I say known cases. We've lived longer, so now we're developing chronic illnesses. Arthritis is a chronic illness. We have knee problems, hip problems, joint problems. COPD is one of the common causes of death today, as is dementia. So our needs have changed, and the need for having long-term care communities has certainly significantly increased. And that's what we're going to talk about today. I'll ask you this. How many of you have a family member, son or daughter, who lives inside the state of Florida? How many have a family member, son or daughter, who lives within 1 hour of your house? Okay, you're the only ones that have a child that is within reasonable distance to get and help you with something. And hope it's not an emergency. If they live more than an hour away, they might as well have to get on an airplane. For my parents, they both lived in the Midwest. We were fortunate Lynn's parents lived here in Orlando, but still, practically speaking, it was 30, 40 minutes for her to get to where her mother lived to do anything. So her mother happened to be living in one of the communities, so everything was safe there for her if something happened. So without wasting any more time, let's get started and have the panelists introduce each other, or themselves. Brooke?
Hi, I'm Brooke Ellis. I'm the Executive Director at Sonata Lake Mary.
And Wendy?
Hello, I'm Wendy Rothenstein. I'm the Director of Community Relations at Aspira Windermere Assisted Living and Memory Support.
So we're going to start with independent living communities. We're going to go back and forth with the panelists on questions, and they're going to talk about communities in general and what we hope you want to know and need to know. So, Brooke, what are the top three reasons people choose to move to an independent living community?
Many times it's due to the fact that the house has now become too much to take care of. You're constantly doing repairs, you're having to take care of things, and it's a worry-free lifestyle. Socialization is a big one. A lot of times we see spouses that might have lost their significant other, and they're just lonely and depression sets in. So being in a community surrounded by neighbors and friends and peers that have common interests is also a big draw. And safety is really probably the primary one. You have peace of mind that there's somebody there in case something happens that's going to be able to respond to you. And we saw it more frequently the last 2 years during the pandemic. Everybody was locked down, and it really made people still feel like they were a part of a community and were still interacting with people and not being isolated.
Thank you. I know that you guys are running this all the time, and I know there's people here in the audience that have toured communities and said, oh, this looks really like a nice community. Wendy, people come in, they say, oh, this looks like a really nice community. You do the tour, you do all the information, you answer the questions. What are the reasons they say no, they don't want to do it?
I would say the primary reason is that the whole process is overwhelming. They don't know where to begin. I've lived in this house for 30 years, my attic is full, I don't know how I'm going to handle getting rid of all my stuff. And we know we all collect a lot of stuff, and selling my house and moving. And so that's where it can become overwhelming. And so working obviously with Great Transitions can help you, that there are professionals out there that can help you through this process. And then one of the things I know Brooke and I both heard, you know, there are a lot of old people there. But what we often see is when they realize, oh my goodness, I could develop friendships here and become social. And so that starts to help through this process, and especially when you realize, take one bite at a time. Don't look at the whole big picture, just in small pieces.
So you bring up a good point, because I hear this frequently. There's people on walkers. There's a lot of people on walkers, and I hear that from folks that go, so Jim, how would you respond to that?
There are people without walkers, and it's a safety device, but does that mean that you can't be active? I mean, I know yesterday I had residents that were participating in a dance competition, and you know what? Some of them had walkers, but it doesn't stop them being able to thrive and participate and enjoy life.
And do you see, and I throw this out to both you guys, when someone comes to the community, because part of balance is anatomical, as we lose balance as we age. We all have that problem. That's why ladders are not our friends. I learned that the hard way. And so with the activities that go on in your community, like you have balance activities and dance, as you said, do you see that people tend to improve if they participate?
Absolutely.
And they're not sedentary like they are at home.
Sitting on the couch.
I will say 100%, right? We're in our homes and we tend to go to the kitchen, the living room, the bedroom, and the bathroom. But when you're in a community and there's lots of amenities and activities going on, it's almost forcing you to have to walk down to the dining room, walk down to that. So you're actually getting more physical activity without really even realizing it.
There's a term we use, and it's not meant to be derogatory in any means at all, but we call them trail homes. And there'll be a carpet path where from the bedroom to the kitchen to the family room to the kitchen to the bedroom. And there'll be no carpet wear in the rest of the house. And as people they've become isolated even within their own house. So socialization becomes huge. So Brooke, we're leading right into it. Activities, so what's the big deal? If they're in the community, what's different as opposed to being at home?
So we have programs. We have a full day worth of activities and some even rolling into the evening. There may be some that you absolutely want to participate in, whether it's a community with a pool that's doing aqua aerobics or an aqua size, whether it's an exercise class. We do outings with transportation, plays, out to movies, out to lunch, shopping. So transportation's taking care of that for you as well. Holiday celebrations, we tend to do a big deal. So it's great to invite your family into your new home and to celebrate that way. Developing those friendships. So you'll see groups start with mahjong groups and then different bridge groups, and they'll become a life of their own where you see residents start to gather because they have like interests and develop their own type of activity. So if you don't want to go down and see the movie that night, but you and your 4 friends want to go up and play cards, and you can do it, and you can do it at any time. So it's always available to you.
So with all those activities going on, first question for you is, do they have to participate?
No, you can be a hermit if you want to, but we'd love to see you out and about.
Well, we hear from folks, we had a lady move to one of the communities and we visited her, and she said, Paul, look, I'm too busy to talk to you. I got too much going on here. I don't even get to take a nap anymore. I go, well, you can if you want. No, you don't understand. I don't want to miss it. There's so much going on.
My favorite, if I can interject, is when you hear residents to that point, their daughter or son's calling and they're saying, I can't talk, I gotta go. We're getting ready to leave, we're going. And it's very rewarding because Wendy and I both see it when families come back and say, Mom's never been this active in the last 30 years. So you just flourish.
So Wendy, with all those activities going on in the community, do people do anything outside the community? Or are they just there and?
No, absolutely. We have residents that have their own cars. They can still be independent. They can come and go. They can still attend their church, their synagogue, their local choir. As Brooke mentioned, some of the Mahjong groups, their book clubs, they can continue their outside interests and develop their new interests and relationships within the communities. Absolutely. We also, our residents, they can still travel. I have someone who just returned back from a cruise with their family. So it doesn't stop that, but you don't have to worry while you're gone. Okay, if anything happens to my house, was the water turned off?
I had a friend, to your point, whose mother-in-law was in a community, and I would, as I should, always ask him how his mother-in-law was doing. And the response usually was, I have no clue. I go, what do you mean you have no clue? Well, we haven't seen her in a month. She's been gone. And when she gets back, she's going again. And she was going on cruises and tours and all kinds of things, and did that for many, many years. So, Brooke, so I'm interested in an independent living community. One of us are interested in, so what do I get? I mean, do I get a bedroom? What are the apartments? What are the options for apartments?
Many different styles. So typically you'll see with independent living, they're ranging from 1-bedroom apartments all the way up to 2 bedrooms. Some even have 3 bedrooms, and they're still very large. You see square footage starting from 700 square feet all the way up to 1,500, 2,000 square feet. So even though you feel like you're downsizing, you're still gaining a lot of space. And the reality of it is we build the communities to highlight those spaces that you're typically utilizing at home. Independent living, you still have full kitchens, so there's stove, full-size refrigerators, washer and dryers are in the apartments. Some will have balconies and porches. So they're very nice, they're well appointed, and really give you kind of a worry-free living.
So with the communities, are they all in just buildings, or do they have cottages or duplexes?
Some do. Some are in a single building that might be 4 to 5 stories, and then there's others that have standalone little villas that are still on the campus, but they are aside from being what I would say inside the towers, if you will.
So there's all levels.
All types of options.
I visited a community recently, and they had an 1,800 square foot 3-bedroom apartment.
Mm-hmm.
My condominium isn't quite that big.
Mm-hmm.
And so, they're very luxurious.
They are, and they utilize space very well. So.
And I know that you are part of building a new community in Lake Mary.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something that's important too. They're building more and more communities now because of the demand.
Correct. Mm-hmm.
So Wendy, what's the price range, generally speaking? We're gonna be real general here on the price ranges for independent living.
Independent living, I think Brooke might have a
Yeah.
better handle on the independent.
Typically independent, you can see start around 3,500 and it can go up from there. It really then comes down to the type of apartment, which floor plan you're choosing, and then all the amenities and utilities are included, meals.
So and then if there's a second, if it's a couple, is there an additional fee for the second one?
Typically there's a second person fee. So
Okay.
it could be anywhere from 700 up to 2,000, it'll depend on the community.
And then is there an entrance fee for a rental? We're talking about rental communities, just to be clear.
Yeah.
Independent assisted living rental communities.
So there is a difference with rental. There is still what we call a one-time community fee. Typically it can be anywhere from 2,000 up to 3,500 a month. It's typically non-refundable once somebody is moved in, but that's charged one time. It's not per person, it's per unit. So if you have a couple, you're not gonna pay that twice, you will pay it one time.
So the activities, and I don't want to go too deep into all this, but I think these are questions people have. The activities, are they a la carte? They pay for the activities? Are the activities included?
Your activities are included. So all the utilities are included. There's typically meal plans that are included. All the activities and amenities are included. Where your out of pocket would be is if you guys were going out to a play at the Dr. Phillips Center or something. You would purchase your ticket for that, but the community handles the transportation. But anything that's done within the community, that's all included in your monthly fee.
And to your point, we go to Dr. Phillips frequently, and when we come out, we'll see there'll be a bus with a community name on it. And one of the communities around Central Florida, in fact, I've seen them from Melbourne coming over for those. And so other than an outside activity that required purchase of, let's say, a ticket,
Right,
everything's
everything's
covered.
included.
And then typically, I know meals are covered to some extent, but typically what meals are covered?
Yeah, typically you'll see communities in independent living provide 2 meals a day. Because remember, in independent living, you still have a full kitchen. So it's really, you're living your day on your schedule. Many times we have late risers, so they might do their own breakfast in their apartment and come down for lunch, and they have something lighter in their apartment at dinner time, or vice versa, come down and enjoy breakfast and maybe come down later at dinner time.
So I'm going to throw this next question out to you because we're talking about money, and Wendy and then Brooke. So I like this idea and I want to move in. Well, how am I going to pay for it? How do people finance moving into independent living?
Good question. One option, well, of course, if you pension, Social Security, savings, but there are also programs that people may not even be aware of. The Veterans Administration has an aid and attendance program that can assist with paying, and there are long-term care insurance. If you have a policy, that can make a big difference. So,
But that only covers health issues. I'm talking about I'm moving out of my home
okay.
into independent living.
Okay, independent. So what Paul is getting at here too, and this is his specialty, is the real estate market is hot right now. And you are all probably sitting on a gold mine. From the sale of your house, what you can, the proceeds from that can pay for a long time in a senior living community.
And I think it's real important, if you're thinking about it now and thinking this might happen in the near future, or as Paul says, it's typically a 12 to 18 month process, then speaking with those financial planners and getting that plan into place. Because they want to know what your goal is, and they're going to help your money last as long as possible. What Paul alluded to with the VA, Veterans Administration, Medicare, Medicaid, that's not going to cover independent living. Because think independent living, you're strictly independent. You're not really getting care brought into your apartment. Whereas in assisted living, healthcare needs change. You're requiring assistance with personal care, managing health. So those programs then will kick in to help support some of the care fees for assisted living.
Median price of home in Central Florida right now is well over $350,000. We find most people own their home free and clear, or if they have a mortgage, it's a small second mortgage of some sort, like a home equity loan. And so people walk away from the sale of the property with significant amount of money that will fund for a very long time.
And something Brooke just mentioned too is working with a financial planner, but also an elder law attorney. Make sure you're getting advice, a wise financial advice and legal advice with planning for your future.
There's no secret to why the people who are partners, who we are partners with and who are partners with us, are involved in this process. We very intentionally have an elder law attorney, very intentionally have communities as partners, and financial advisors as partners. Financial advisor is June, I believe, is our session. Next month we're doing continuing care communities, and then we're going to do another elder law attorney seminar later in the year. So that's why they're here, because you need them, and it's very important that I have that expertise available for you. So what's the best way, Wendy, for someone to determine, because people will say, I'm jumping ahead of myself, I went in there and it just clicked, but what's the best way somebody to determine that the community fits what they want? Independent living.
Okay, I would suggest visit multiple communities. You'll be able to compare to see which ones click, which ones you feel comfortable. Ask your friends, neighbors too about their experiences. You may find out about communities that you didn't even know, but I think so much it's visiting them and actually getting a chance to see them in person. And how often are families surprised? Oh wow, this is a lot nicer. Wow, look at how busy your residents are. Look at how much fun.
What's the best time to visit? Independent living, because I know I've gone to independent living communities, there's aren't a lot of people around.
I'll take
Say
that
11
one.
in the
Yeah,
morning.
Yeah, I think with independent living, quite honestly, the best time to visit is gonna be either before lunch or after lunch into the afternoon. And the reason I say that is, if you remember when we were talking about meals with breakfast, a lot of our independent living residents are hatchers. So they're not waking up, that you're still up early, but you may not wanna mosey on out down to the dining room and have breakfast. You're kind of starting your day, having your coffee, doing your morning routine. So if you come first thing in the morning, it might very much look like what's going on, where is everybody? So I would say early afternoon prior to lunch and then rolling into late afternoon.
And with independent living, isn't it pretty much an amenity-driven decision?
It
What
really
things do they have that I like doing, or
Correct.
that someone likes
Mhm.
doing? Yes, sir. Can you grab a mic? Wait. Give Dana a chance. We're getting our exercise today.
Yeah, going back to the cost of this, now I've looked into a couple of them, and I haven't totally looked into them, but they ask for an upfront fee, anywhere from like 100,000 to almost 500,000. Now, the only difference I've seen with those is they do have a nursing home there too. What's the big difference there? What are they offering that you've got to spend all this extra money up front? What do you get? Do you know what you're getting, or do you have to go to different homes and find out what they're giving you for that?
Yeah, I think,
So the question is, and what you're asking has to do with what we call continuing care communities or life care communities. That's our subject next month, and we're going to go into that in great detail.
Oh, next month?
This is a rental community that
Yeah, I've looked at some of these too.
the entrance fee is a low entrance fee. For the continuing care communities, that fee is a very high fee, and it covers a whole lot of other resources. And it's best that we discuss that. If you want to ask afterwards, I can go into, or they can, a little more, but that's a rabbit hole that would take 30 minutes.
If you're gonna do it next month, then just come next month.
Okay, so come next month. So thank you though. It's a very good question.
Yeah, I mean, it's something I've run across already, you know?
What would disqualify somebody from living, Brooke? What would disqualify somebody from living in an independent living community?
so number one is gonna be, safety. Somebody's got to still be able to have the capacity to self-evacuate or self-preserve in case of an emergency. Again, independent. If somebody is coming into independent and they might need some slight help with some certain things, or it's after procedure, definitely can stay in independent and bring those outside services in. However, again, it's about the safety and being able to self-preserve in case of an emergency. So typically, if we start to see an independent living resident that's starting to require kind of constant care around the clock or 12 hours or more, then we want to talk and start having a discussion about transitioning over into assisted living where more care and supervision can be provided.
And your communities have both independent and assisted living?
Correct, you can transition through the lifestyles.
Okay, good. One thing that came up was visiting communities and doing tours of communities. And it's important that when you do that, you have questions to ask. And it's important that you have the same questions for each community, so you're getting answers that you can compare. We have provided, Lynn, do you have your mic on? Well, we've provided, and Lynn has them, they'll be in the back, a community questionnaire. And they're sample questions to ask. And the communities, you're happy to do that, right?
Absolutely. And I would say when you go to, like when you said, looking at different options, see what compares, because communities have different feels and different vibes, different finishes. So you can find one that's going to be more comfortable for your setting. And we love our communities, we have great communities, but we may not be the right fit for everybody. And we want to be able to provide the resource that's going to be best tailored for you to help you with that.
And I'll tell you about communities in general, my experience. If they are pushing you, it may not be the community for you, because the really good communities with the really good people, and these are two of the really good people, want you to be in a community where you're happy, safe, and will stay there,
Absolutely. And
right?
talk to the residents
Yeah.
that live there. Ask for family members that you could call or other residents that you could speak to, and just trust me, our residents are very honest and very open. So they say the good, bad, and the ugly. It's their home, and if it's gonna become your home, it's gotta be somewhere where you feel comfortable.
And you've got a great advantage now with tours because we're getting away from our
Yes.
pandemic issues. And so the communities are open for tours, and they have people that they'll call different things, but ambassadors, and who will do what?
They will, we have ambassadors that will join us on a tour, or if you wanna schedule a time to come in, tour and have lunch, the ambassador will sit with you and they'll kind of give you a peek into what the day is like once they're living there.
And they like to show off their apartments.
Love to show off the apartments, yes.
So we're gonna move on to assisted living, unless somebody has a specific question for independent, and you can certainly ask later. Great, so assisted living,
Yes.
different kind of feel,
Yes.
different kind of community, in the same building or same campus for your communities in general. For this. What are the top 3 reasons people, Wendy, move into assisted living? I know you're primarily doing assisted living today.
Correct. Peace of mind is the top thing, the ease of living, not having to worry about the maintenance of your home, and if you're starting to have any health challenges, to know that there is someone there. You have the medical side available to you, and the safety. That's key. Having team members, medical team members on staff 24 hours a day, that makes a big difference. And it's looking forward, not just at today. You have to make sure you're planning. If you know that you have recently been diagnosed with a medical situation, looking at what possibilities and knowing that you can enjoy life and have the care that you might need.
So what would cause somebody to not qualify for independent, but be able to go into assisted?
Okay. As Brooke was mentioning, a lot of that is the safety, even ambulation. Let's say that you're having some mobility challenges. Maybe you're in a wheelchair now. You need assistance with transferring, the inability to be able to evacuate on your own. That is one of the criteria that we look at. So that's one of the keys right there. And then the cognitive issue or assistance, even with medication, the ability to have a nurse assist with your medication management.
So I want to go on to something else with this, Brooke. And I mentioned at the onset, most of us were alive in 1950, right? So we probably have memories of going to see a relative who was in the home or in the facility or whatever term we had for it. And they probably weren't terribly fond memories. I had that going to see my great-grandmother, and it was a ward where she was. So that was then. That is gone. Let's talk about what assisted living apartments look like today.
I know, my grandfather used to call it the happy haunting farm. They're not going there, but today, we're building for baby boomers, quite honestly. When you get the good developers and operators in, we're really building for the baby boomers and what's to come and the flexibility. So even in assisted living, they have great amenities. If your community has a pool, there are options where assisted living residents can still utilize the pool as long as they're safe and there's some waivers and can't have any incontinence issues, right, that are going on. But still, you try to keep it very similar to independent, because as a resident starts in our community and independent and may need to transition through those different lifestyles, you want to have that same feeling that you had when you were in independent. So really the apartment's gonna be the same as it was in independent living. However, there's a couple tweaks. There's not a full stove. You have a full-size refrigerator, a microwave, the washer and dryer still in the apartment in some communities. So it depends on what's available. But you're really not taking away all those bells and whistles, if you will, that you had in independent while you're moving into assisted living.
But other than some appliances, the apartments are very similar to independent living.
Yeah, very much so. It's really the appliances a big difference,
Oh,
you know.
You'll be amazed when you tour the communities, because you're gonna see both when you go into their communities. And they'll go from independent to assisted, and it's just another hall, in most communities.
Yeah.
So they are very similar. And I think that's one of the huge changes. There's 4.2 million people in Florida over the age of 65. A friend of mine used to joke that when he would go see his in-laws, that the Muzak was playing, right? The old Muzak was playing, and then it was the Beatles was playing. And 50s rock and roll was playing in the background music, so it's changed dramatically.
Absolutely.
So, what types of services, Wendy, that aren't in independent living are typically available in assisted living?
one of the first things is going to be medication management. Having a nurse or a medication technician assisting with your medications. That's going to be administering medications. Let's say that you have diabetes and you're on sliding scale insulin. A nurse can handle giving you the injections, checking your sugar levels, ordering your medications for you, getting the refills. You don't have to be driving to CVS. They can take care of that. We can assist with bathing, grooming, dressing, eating assistance, escorting. So there's the more the medical and assistance.
So activities of daily living.
Exactly.
You want to touch on that?
They're referred to as ADLs, activities of daily living, and anyone who has a long-term care insurance policy. These are key aspects with that too. They're looking to see that you're obtaining assistance with 2 to 3. Usually we try to make sure that is 3 that most are looking for. So bathing. With bathing, that could be standby assist, someone getting everything ready and being nearby while you shower independently, but having the peace of mind of knowing there's someone there. And it can go up to a 2-person assist. Dressing, grooming, as I said, escorting, eating, and a big part of it is the safety aspect.
So assisted living, there's usually an activity of daily living that's involved, and that's why they moved to assisted living. So are there things, Brooke, that would disqualify somebody from living in assisted living?
Sure. Assisted living, we're licensed by the Agency of Healthcare Administration. So they lay out what we're able to do under our licensure. And there's actually 3 different licensures that an assisted living can hold. It's a standard, a limited nursing service, or an extended congregate care. These days, we're really seeing that an extended congregate care license is really not being utilized like it used to be because the demands are so hard on the staff. But once a person's living in assisted living, should they get to the point where they're no longer able to bear weight and transfer with assistance, that's going to disqualify them. If somebody becomes bedridden for more than, depending on a license, 7 days or 14 days, and they don't qualify for hospice services. Somebody, as Wendy alluded to, that is requiring more than 2 persons to assist with a transfer, whether it's from bed to chair, from chair to standing, or from chair to wheelchair, or onto the bathroom for assistance. If we see residents with cognitive impairments that function well in assisted living, as Paul alluded to, there's some type of dementia typically starting, but if it's starting to progress, and they truly then might need to go to a memory care, still assisted living, but going into the memory care portion because it's a better environment for them. They can get a little bit more assistance that way.
So we're probably going to end up coming back to that a little later, but we're kind of going in order we went with independent. In assisted living, generally speaking, Wendy, what's the price range in Central Florida?
In Central Florida, I would say the lower range starts around $4,000 and goes up to maybe $7,000. And that's for someone that's needing quite a bit of care, maybe a 2-person assist with care. So there is quite a range. And I just want to go back to one thing where bedbound was mentioned. I had a call the other day from a daughter saying her mom is bedbound. And so when I asked her what that means, what it is they have to assist mom getting out of her bed into her wheelchair. She's self-propelled. It's like, no, she's not bedbound. So you want to make sure that you do verify the terminology that people are using, because you'd hate to have someone excluded from assisted living who truly could meet the criteria.
And typically, a person can be in assisted living for a very long time.
Absolutely.
Very long time.
Mhm.
Oftentimes, we're hoping that is their final home.
And can they bring in outside assistance to help them?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
they can. I know Brooke and I both, sure. If you want to bring in any additional help into a community though, we are going to want to ensure it's someone that background check, safety check, so it's not like you can bring, Joe down the street just to come in and help. We do need to verify.
So to move on, Brooke,
Yes.
how do people finance assisted living? We talked about how people pay for independent, but what about assisted living? Do the options expand?
They do. So, we talked about the sale of proceeds of the home, retirement, pension, savings. But as we discussed with long-term care insurance, if you have a long-term care insurance policy, typically they're going to require that you need assistance with at least 2 of those activities of daily living: dressing, grooming, showering. They don't count medications, unfortunately, in a lot of the plans. But look at those plans. So they will you make the claim, there's paperwork we have to fill out for them, and then that money that you're going to receive back is going to go direct to you. It doesn't come to us as the community. We're not the beneficiary, you are. So it typically gets paid in arrears. If somebody's a veteran or a surviving spouse of a veteran, they can apply for aid in attendance. So they've got to meet, same, you have to require assistance with at least 2 of those activities of daily living. There is a financial component. So if you are a veteran or a spouse and you're thinking down the road and you're all pre-planning, talk with that elder law attorney and financial planner so you can protect and preserve certain assets. That might help you with that qualification. Medicare will only pay for third-party services in assisted living. So Medicare is going to cover if the physician comes in and you're seeing the physician, whether it's podiatry, dermatology, or the primary care physician, you're going to pay that copay just like you would do if you were going to their office. Prescription plans for the pharmacy. If you're requiring physical therapy, speech or occupational therapy, that's where your Medicare or your insurance is going to kick in. There are programs through Medicaid and the Sunshine State waiver. I said the F word, facilities. Communities need to be contracted with those providers if you're going to have to use a Medicaid type program. And they get their reimbursement different. So you need to make sure that if that's the avenue that you need to utilize, that you're looking at communities that accept those programs.
And if you're considering doing anything, so she touched on a lot here. Medicare will cover third-party services such as physician. If they prescribe something outside that comes in like physical therapy, we'll cover that. And some of that depends on what Medicare you're on also. If you're on a Medicare Advantage plan, it may not cover some of that. VA and Medicaid are needs-based.
Correct.
VA obviously applies only to veterans. Medicaid applies to people with lesser financial abilities. And both of those are going to require somebody that knows how to do that to get it in place. And if someone thinks that automatically they're in Medicaid or they want to do something they think will help them qualify for Medicaid, I would encourage you, do not do anything until you talk to an a board certified elder law attorney. Don't talk to the people on TV.
Amen.
Don't talk to the ad in the newspaper, because some of them are trying to convince people to get on Medicaid. Talk to a really an independent third party about that, and we have an excellent one that you've already been met today. So moving on, what are some myths? I kind of talked about it as we started here. This is granddad's nursing home. What are some myths about assisted living that we need to get rid of? Or misconceptions about assisted living, Wendy?
The first thing is getting rid of that word facility We like to refer to them as communities because that's what they truly are now. But I hate even saying it, but my mother-in-law said this to me recently. Those are the places you go to die. And I had to say to her, no, those are the places you go to thrive. And you would be amazed at how someone's wellness can improve being in a community. You don't realize when you're sitting at home on the couch watching TV, especially over the past few years, you've missed that friendship, the socialization. And so that's probably one of the biggest misconceptions.
So Brooke, how are the activities different from independent living?
They're really very, very similar. So again, it's just like going from the independent living apartment into an assisted living apartment. We want to keep it consistent. Our assisted living residents, even though they might have more health challenges and require a little bit more care, they're still going and want to be active and can keep up with a lot of things. So they're still able to go out onto the bus for transportation to outings, whether they go out for a lunch bunch or they're going out again like to Dr. Phillips or shopping. Assisted living, you're still doing that. They still have the groups that have card games. They still have a very full activity, exercise programs that are built in. And what Wendy and I both touched on is just the point for your mother-in-law. You know, we talked about you were in these 3 rooms in your home and you really weren't getting out about, but now having that ability to walk down to the dining room, to walk down to the exercise class, or even if you have to be escorted, you're getting that energy and you're getting that exercise and that activity, but you're building all those friendships and you really do become a community and a family. And I will always tell you that for us who work in these communities, you guys become our family. We're spending more time at our communities with our residents and our team members than we are with our own families at home. So we take it very personally. So when you're choosing, you're gonna feel it from the staff and from the leadership in the community. If they don't have that passion, I'm gonna tell you, go down the street, go somewhere else, because you have to have that feeling of family.
And one thing I've noticed, and I think it's, in my opinion, is important when you're in a community and touring, the person you're going around with, one of the professionals at the community, if they know everybody's name, they're involved. And I'm amazed, because I'm horrible with names. And they'll walk by, and depending on the relationship with the resident, it's Mr. or Mrs. or it's Bill or Susie or whatever their relationship is. How are you doing? How are your grandchildren? By the way, did your daughter graduate, or your granddaughter, did she finish college? How did that test go? Or, you know, are you going to go on vacation again this year? So you guys really get to know them.
You really do.
Absolutely.
And I think that, in my opinion, is an indicator of a really good community, which leads into my next question. Wendy, how does somebody know when the community is right for them?
I think it goes back to what we discussed previously. When you go and visit a community, it's the feel that you get. It's seeing happy, healthy, well cared for residents that are engaged, where their families are welcome, and even the communication during the whole process while you're looking for a community, visiting. I think that's going to be key. Talk to those residents, ask to speak to some families.
And I would say observe the staff.
Exactly.
I mean, if you have happy team members in the community, it's gonna show. If you're walking through and touring a community and you see team members that are grumpy and that's they're not happy. Maybe they just had a bad day, but they're not happy. And so for the communities out there that really have the compassion and passion for what you do, you want happy staff, because happy staff means happy residents. And basically at the end of the day, I will share this whenever we do onboarding with our team members. We have to remember, we are coming to work in your home. That's how it is. We're not just going to work, we are working in your home now. So that's a big differentiation. It's not just we're going to work. We're going into somebody's home.
So, talk a bit about the people in assisted living. Are they coming primarily from the independent living side of the community? or are they coming from outside? Can you talk about that for a second, both of you?
Yeah, it's a mix. I think for us, we see, a mix of it. You'll have independent living residents that have now transitioned and they need a little bit more assistance and more care. So they're just naturally transitioning and we're forward thinking in the fact that, I can see things might progress and I want to be smart about it. And so I want to put that plan into place. But we do see assisted living residents coming in right out of their own homes. Sometimes they're coming out of their homes because now it's just become too much. A crisis has now happened, or they've had frequent hospital stays in and out. Maybe they had to go to rehab after a procedure or a bad fall or a stroke, some catastrophic event, if you will, that's going to require them now to need more assistance. So we can see it both ways.
So the people who come from outside, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but there tended to be a crisis
Correct.
that caused them to come.
Yes.
And one other aspect, I have moved a lot of people in recently from out of state. Their families live local and they realize it's too hard maintaining their home, being far away from family. They want to be close by, and so.
You touch on a good point. I'm gonna get it off subject a tad. We're doing that more and more. We're moving a couple right now from Austin, Texas to Melbourne. And we're actually handling all the real estate side in Austin, Texas for them. So we're seeing more and more people move to Florida. And I think that the pandemic exacerbated that issue of people wanting to get, why live up here where it's cold and miserable when we can go down there where it's beautiful and nice and sunny?
Yes, definitely.
So, this may sound like a dumb question, but I want to ask it anyway. Are they better off just waiting and going to assisted living, or should they move to independent living while they're healthy?
I would say take advantage of it while you're healthy. And the reason for that is you're already getting your foot in the door into a community. You're increasing your social circle. You already are familiar with the community and the staff, because when you have to make that decision, you're not making it in a crisis decision that something happened. You can work with the community and the leadership team to help guide you for when that time is right. They're also in there to help you with pulling resources in to help you stay as independent as possible for as long as possible. So for me, I feel like people wait too long, and that's why independent living is such a nice little piece of that lifestyle, because it does help kind of guide you and navigate you through that journey.
Statistically, people who move to independent living will remain independent longer than someone who stays in their home thinking they'll be independent there. And it's the socialization,
Yes.
it's the exercise they're going to get because they have to walk to dinner,
Yes.
which is the next one,
Yeah.
and the meals.
Proper
And we can
nutrition.
all talk from personal experience about that. We saw it with our parents. My mother moved to independent. She was a widow at that point, and she wasn't a big cook, and she was eating poorly. And she moved, and boy, she just was a new person.
Yes.
And she said to me, "Stop bothering me, I have too much to do." And which I was happy, because I wanted her to have too much to do. So,
Nutrition that you just mentioned is a
Everything.
big piece. When someone is at home, they don't cook the big meals anymore. They're eating frozen, processed foods, eating a can of soup, maybe skipping a meal. And so we often see that someone's health improves too.
the article I read said that people will remain up 3 to 5 years, independent 3 to 5 years longer by moving into a community versus staying home. And so, good that somebody's asking a question, because we're ready to open up for questions. So if you guys can grab the microphones, and I'll repeat the question.
Hi, I know in some of these communities, you could pick to have 10 meals a month or 20 meals a month. Do any of these communities offer organic food on the meal plan?
So the question is about the numbers of meals offered and how that works, generally speaking. as well as the dietary requirements or requests. So I'll let either one of you go after
You
that.
want to start with the organic?
So with organic, we are seeing that more as a diet that people are leaning more towards. So you really want to find out what the community is doing. I can speak for us. We like to try to do a lot of farm to table and try to use those local purveyors, very easy for me to say, as most as we can. But then we also look at gluten-free options. We're looking at heart healthy, low sodium, no concentrated sweets. So you do. What's really important, I think, also is, you're moving into this community and you have a voice. Communities typically have food committee meetings. So where you can sit down with the chef and say, here's some things I would like to see introduced, or this. Now, I will tell you, the challenge is you are cooking for a community. So some like the good old home style, type of fare, and others want more organic, and others want a lot of fish. So you're trying to please a lot of different palates and a lot of different backgrounds. But that's why the food committee is so important. But also ask to see a sample of the menu. Ask to have a meal. For us, I can speak personally, there's usually chef specials, but there's an always available menu. So if you don't really care for the chef special that is being offered that day, you're gonna find something else on that menu that's gonna be appealing towards you.
I encourage you to eat a meal when you go to a community. Lunch, dinner, whatever is your pleasure, and ask to do that. This is a pet peeve of Paul's. If you go to a community for a presentation and somebody comes in and says, we fixed a special meal for you, that's not good. If they say you're eating what our residents are eating today, that's good, because that's what you want.
Exactly.
And Paul, lunch, as Brooke mentioned before, is a great option because it also is going to give you an opportunity to engage more with a lot of the residents and see some of the activities going on.
So, do most of the communities do table service versus cafeteria style? Okay, did you get that? It's table service, brought to your
Servers,
table.
yes.
You order at your table, they bring it to the table.
And then to answer the question regarding the points, like on plans, that's gonna depend on the community as well. Some will offer, you get so many points per month. If you don't utilize them, they'll roll over and you can continue and they might max out. Other communities might say, this is just our offerings. There's no credits given. It's you use it or lose it. So it really is gonna depend on how that works and what best fits for you.
So,
One other-
what other questions?
Regarding diet, when you are visiting communities and you have any special dietary needs, make sure that you're inquiring. Do they do special diets? Can they do mechanical soft? Can they do puree, thickened liquids? We do no salt added, but if you do have any special dietary needs, make sure you inquire about that. And you will see, like as far as the organic, that a lot of the communities are trying to be flexible. We make sure we have vegetarian options now too. That's very popular. We try to use as many fresh vegetables or what is in season. That's why our menus will change based on the season.
Good. So, next question?
Yes, I would like to know if they want to try out the community. For example, if they say they like it, will you authorize them to stay a weekend or 1 or 2 days to see the activities, how people are living? Do you do that?
So the question is, can somebody come in and stay at the community for a limited period of time or even for respite care? But the first part of that question is to decide if they like the community.
Yeah, absolutely. So that rolls into in our definition as a respite stay. So I would highly, highly encourage that, especially when we're seeing families that are wanting to move their loved ones from out of state. So they come down, it's a good way, trying to feel out what's gonna be right. I've had lots of success with families doing that and staying with us for, a couple weeks or more. I will say though, it's very hard to get a real true feel if you're only staying a weekend.
Yes.
So if somebody wants to do that, I highly suggest you guys do a minimum of at least 2 weeks,
Yes.
if not 30 days. And what's interesting to note is we're rental communities. You know, you're gonna learn about the buy-in and the life care communities on the next series. But for us, it's a 30-day notice. So if somebody's living with us and they've been with us for 6 months and, you know, they say, this is just not the right fit with me, it's a 30-day notice and you're out of your lease agreement. It's also a great way too, if you have somebody that they're gonna relocate because maybe now they're moving to be closer to family. So you have an exit, if you will, out of the lease agreement.
One thing, you bring up a very good point, and thank you for asking that question, is don't sell the house.
Right.
The system that Lynn Henderson and I developed, we developed through a lot of training and a lot of experience, and we move people first. We get them settled in the community first. We make sure they like the community first. They're out of the house, they're gone, they're enjoying their new life at the community. As we always say, the next place they call home. And then we work with whatever family member they tell us to handle everything else to deal with the house. We handle the estate sale, the repairs, whatever needs to be done and sell it. The resident is at one of these communities, enjoying their life. And when they need to see documents, sign documents, we come to them. They don't have to ever go back to the house. Very important that they don't ever go back to the house. It's too hard for them to do that. So that's just a little aside. What other questions do we have? Yes, sir, in the back.
Are your communities and in general, are they corporate, national corporate companies, or are they locally owned? And second question, what is your waiting list?
So the question is corporate versus locally owned. Locally owned could be regionally or state of Florida, I think, not necessarily privately held. But, and the second part of that was not-for-profit?
Waiting time.
Waiting time, excuse me.
Yeah, so there are several different communities, you know, where I feel like sometimes we're popping up like 7-Elevens these days. But there are providers that are national. A Brookdale, for example, that's a large national company. Trying to think of some other big ones that just recently come into Florida. Sunrise is a big national company. Holiday, big retirement national company. And then you will have some that are locally owned and operated. So to Paul's point, they might be a regional operator. For us in our community, Sonata, we are locally owned. So our headquarters is right here out of downtown Orlando. We operate 13 communities. So we're regionally. Our model's not to build and to have this big, huge portfolio. And then you have some that might be just a private owner, and maybe there's only 1 or 2 communities. So it's an important question, and to be a little biased, the ones that are more, you wanna know if it's private or public too, that could play into something sometimes. You know, being that you're a private owner, you can kind of pivot a little bit quicker and get questions answered and decisions made a little bit sooner. And you're not having to go in front of a board and report all your financial documents and then having a board dictate what increases are gonna happen or, you know, how you're gonna play it. Because at the end of the day, we're the operators.
So Wendy, what about waiting lists?
As far as the waiting list, that varies for each community. What I would tell you is there are openings that are always happening. So, and part of it depends on like what apartment. We are located on a lake. So the premier lakefront apartments are always the first choice for most families. So I may have an apartment, but I may not have the lakefront at the time. So it varies.
So I'm gonna pivot that question because let's move to assisted living.
Yes.
Somebody's in independent living, an assisted living apartment opens up. Who's got first rights to that apartment in your communities?
Okay, someone who is already a resident is going to get the first right of that apartment.
Okay, so that's even more reason to move to independent living first.
It's priority.
And
Yes.
as we age, 4.2 million of us over the age of 65, there are not 4.2 million independent and assisted living apartments in the state of Florida, I guarantee you.
That is true.
That will be tighter and tighter. So question up here?
Yeah, you just mentioned about increases. And
Hot
so we
topic.
know what's happening with housing prices and rents in the Orlando
Yes.
area. And can you comment on that? And also, in a similar vein, can you go to Podunk, Florida and have a lot cheaper monthly fees, or Minnesota or North Dakota or someplace like that?
So the question is, first of all, cost of living increases. And then secondly, are there other places in the state or country, and I'm gonna answer part of that when we get to it, where somebody could go less expensively?
So industry average with rate increases in senior living is typically anywhere from 4 to 7%. It's gonna depend on the company itself, so those larger corporations might do things a little differently. I will be, to your point, the pandemic, it hit us. This last year, our industry saw the highest rate increases we have seen in probably 30 plus years. And it was due to nobody budgets for a pandemic. You know, nobody budgets that we were gonna have to go purchase all this PPE. And oh, by the way, the scary part was staffing in assisted living and memory care. A lot of them kind of went because they were nervous. They were scared. Or nurses went to go do COVID clinics because they were getting paid astronomical dollars and sometimes didn't even have to work. So it put a big pressure on our industry because we were having to rely on agency staffing, which we don't like to do because they don't know our people and they don't know our ways. But it did, and we had to recover those costs. So this year it was hard. I know some communities had anywhere from 7 to 15% rate increases. And then others held kind of right what they've always done at 4 to 5. So that depends. No, I can't guarantee that it's gonna be a certain percent every year. It really depends on the average of what the company does. And then secondly, as far as prices, in Florida, you can go to different markets. If you were in Polk County, it's probably gonna be less expensive than Orange County or Seminole County. I can tell you down in Palm Beach County, their prices are higher than what we are up here. Jacksonville has higher rates. I've had residents, we both have, that have come out of New York or New Jersey, and they're paying half down here in Florida of what they were paying in their communities up north. So it does have a lot to do with the market.
There was an article in the paper, and Lynn's gonna correct me if I'm saying this wrong. It was about a high rise in New York, and the fee was $20,000 a month.
They're building one in San Francisco for $25,000 a month. My brother sent me the article. He's like, come here. I'm like, no.
But I will say that if you're going to go to small town America will not have the communities like these. They don't have the resident base to be able to support it. There are exceptions to everything we say up here, because people are gonna say, well, wait a minute, there's a big one up in Mount Dora. That Mount Dora is near Orlando. So interestingly, the Villages has very few communities around it for people who can no longer live in their home. And that's something. There's 128,000 people up there over the age of 65.
One of the biggest challenges with some of these small towns though is staffing. If it's a small town, there aren't as many people there, and so securing staff can be a very big challenge in the smaller areas.
And it may not be a place that's convenient. My father ended up in a small community in north central Illinois. It was a Mennonite-driven community, independent living, assisted living. He was in the memory care portion. I'll tell you what, it was a nightmare to get there. It was an airplane flight to Chicago and a 4-hour drive to the community. It was just nothing easy to get to. So it's not always, there are other factors that go in. Take one more question and then.
I have another question pertaining to the independent living and transitioning to DLF. Do they have to put another entry fee, another deposit, or they're already in Sonata, community, and they can just transition and pay the new fee for the assisted living?
So if someone's in it, the question is, if somebody's already in the independent living part of the community and they transfer to the assisted living part of the community, they pay another entrance fee?
No, it's one time. So you're not, and even if we have, you have a community, let's say, that you're living in right now, and you were to transfer to what we call the sister community, let's say family, it was closer to family to be, I'll speak for Sonata. We have some buildings down in South Florida and here, and then we also have a memory care in the Villages. So if somebody was gonna transfer, and we've had that happen, we're not gonna charge another community fee. You're already our family, we'll just assist with the move.
So, these guys do a great job.
Thank you.
We're all gonna stick around. All our partners are gonna be here. They'll be back at the tables to answer any questions you have. So please throw questions at them, make them hard, and get your answers while you're here. Did we try to sell you anything? Good, because we don't want to sell, we want to give you education. Next month, we're going to talk about continuing care communities. We have 2 excellent panelists. There's some newspapers in the back. We advertise a community paper, and there's an article about next month's seminar. So please grab one of those and read it. What are you going to do with what you learned today? I trust you're going to get somebody else to come and bring them so they can learn also. We do have a question real quick. You can stay after and ask that question. Most of the communities now allow pets, yes. Please bring somebody next month. We challenge each one of you to do that, and I always close with a quote. Life's tragedy is we get old too soon and wise too late. That's by Ben Franklin.
That's so true.
God bless, have a great week, and I trust you'll stick around for questions.
Thank you guys.